Nice little Eastern Bleedy Oolong. So, today we are with Andrew Pegram, man. Andrew is one of the emerging leaders in the Pacific Northwest's revitalized scene of spiritual emergency, and it's just such a blessing to have him here today. Andrew, thank you for being here. Welcome to Take Me to Your Leader.
Man, I'm not used to doing this, so I apologize ahead of time if I'm awkward in this and whatever, or if I'm staring off in the wrong direction.
Dude, you're talking to the king of awkward, bro. I'm super awkward, so don't worry about that. I'm honored to be sitting with you today because I believe I met you about, what was that, a year ago?
Shit.
Almost a year and a half ago?
Yeah. Feels crazy now.
I think we're going to do hibiscus with the black oolong. You like that?
I love hibiscus.
You fucking with that idea?
I love hibiscus.
Andrew loves hibiscus, so we're going to roll with the hibiscus today. We're going to do a little hibiscus with this. And just see how it goes, man.
All right.
We're going to brew this gong fu style for all my gong fu tea brewers out there. So, Andrew, what's been on your heart recently, man? How you feel?
Well, that's a big question.
How you feel about spiritual emergency? That's what we're here talking about, right?
Spiritual emergency. Well,
how'd you even get into that? Like, you were presenting. I met Andrew presenting at Peer Apocalypse on spiritual emergency. Then he did a follow-up seminar, and the turnout was ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess people are wanting it. That follow-up was pretty crazy, though, with the technical difficulties. But, yeah, it was like half the people that I sent a message out to appeared.
You killed it, bro. You killed it.
I was fucking shocked, honestly. I've always been into this, really. Spirituality itself, I've been into it since I was a kid. I came across this book, 3 Magic Words. I forget the author's name. But I remember reading it when I was 11, and at the end it says, "You are God." Those are the 3 magic words. And it just kind of hit. I didn't really understand it, but something felt right about that.
Right.
And it's just always been part of my life. I was practicing Wiccan for a while. I've dabbled in Christian spirituality and mysticism, Hermeticism, all kinds of things, shamanism. So yeah, it's been part of my life since I was 11. I've always been attracted to what is this? What else is going on here than just what seems to be going on?
Yeah.
And I was a pretty weird kid. And I was into pretty weird things.
So when it comes to the spiritual dimensions of wellness, how much do you think the medical paradigm we operate in nowadays is actually accounting for that? I know you've spent time on the front lines in crisis units, as have I, and there's a glass ceiling to the medical model, right?
Totally.
So from what I've seen in practice, there's a big focus on physical and mental health, and mental health is just now getting the attention it deserves. It's starting to, but then there's this talk in the medical arena around spiritual wellness.
Yeah.
Right. But me and you both know there's 8 dimensions of wellness, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, environmental, fiscal, and occupational wellness. The traditional medical model is only addressing 3 at most.
At most, yeah. It's hard for me to see this. I worked in a crisis center for 3 years, and it was both infuriating and really saddening to me to see people go through this and not get the kind of support that I felt like they needed, or even they felt that they needed.
Right. And
more often than not, these experiences are pathologized. At the worst, they're pathologized. At the best, they're just kind of looked on as naivete or imagination. So we really need more education around this. We need more awareness. The problem with that, though, is that's a paradigm clash. We can't actually have this conversation even without even talking about the fundamental paradigm we're operating from as a society.
But how would you define like spiritual emergency to the people out there who have no idea what this is? Like, what would you say in layman's terms?
In layman's terms, I would say spiritual emergency is an experience where your sense of self or reality is totally shaken.
Completely.
Completely. And a lot of people are in uncharted territory with this, and so that can make it really scary and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, these are situations that have a spiritual flair to them that tear asunder your illusions and send the sanctuary of your own ignorance crashing down around you in a very cathartic and energetic way. You know, you talk about Kundalini awakening, you talk about near-death experiences, you talk about all of these things that jar people's sense of existence.
Yeah.
They can send you into a space mentally that you weren't prepared for, and that can be an emergency, and the spiritual emergency for someone. So a lot of the times when I encountered that in the field working in crisis, I would do my best to help that person shift from emergency to emergence.
Yeah.
Which is something we'll get into as well, because these go hand in hand. Looks like our water is heated up.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna get into this tea. Let's see what we got going on here.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Guys, we're having fun. We are in Oregon because we had to come see Andrew Pegram. I'm so delighted to be sitting with this fella. You have no idea how much he's inspired me as we've both navigated the spiritual emergency paradigm together.
Oh, fuck, man. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. You are a legend in the making.
I don't know what I am, but I know you fucking are.
I'm telling you, you are. I'm telling you, I got an eye for talent, man. You got talent, brother. So, cheers to you. Cheers to your health.
It's sometimes hard for me to take that, but I respect it coming from you.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's just a blessing to be here with you, Andrew. Gonna go ahead and do a rinse here.
Nice.
Yeah, let's do a rinse.
I've never seen like the full process, like the way you have it set up.
You know, it's so necessary to do it this way. Once I started doing it, it was hard for me to turn back. It really was. We're gonna give some to our tea pet. Sign of honor.
Little offering.
Yeah, it's an offering. One thing I love about the tea ceremony is that it's based in respect, purity, harmony, and tranquility. And man, aren't we seeking that?
Yes. Yeah,
every single freaking day.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of what peer support's about, right?
I agree with you.
And you know, even just human to human, but you know, we try to bring that into the world as peers, into a place where it's not always there.
Absolutely. You know, and if we can manage to touch somebody's lives in a time and a pivotal moment where they can actually emerge from spiritual emergency to spiritual emergence into a better version of themselves. Wow.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take this moment to encourage you. If you have not had any water today, please drink some water. Hydrate yourself. This podcast has been brought to you by the Lucid Living Transitional Care Network and Perrier. Okay.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, people. Toast to your health.
And I'll probably pee a lot.
As you should, man. Clear yourself out, man. So let's explore something. Being that we both have worked in the medical paradigm, I think it's worth us talking about the difference between spiritual emergency and organic psychosis, because a lot of people are ambivalent when that conversation comes into play. So let's talk a little bit more about it. What would you say is the difference? I do have some information to give as well.
I have to add a little context to this.
Okay.
Modern psychiatry doesn't do a really good job, I don't feel, with diagnosing people. And I partly say that from my own experience with having been diagnosed and seeing firsthand how people would give me different diagnoses depending on who the provider was. We need to be testing the actual body. If you're going to label this as a disorder, look inside the brain,
right.
Check the body. There are even things that naturopaths do that most psychiatrists don't do. They'll test for hormones, they'll test for nutrient levels, They'll examine your lifestyle factors. They'll examine your stress, trauma. There are so many things that can be at play in this mix of things. And it doesn't really do people justice to just narrow it down to this one conclusion that you made based off very limited evidence. So
does not do people justice at all. We have to check into the neurobiology, the neurochemistry, and really make sure that we're making individualized diagnoses and prescriptions that could push people towards a better version of themselves, more wholeness for sure.
Yeah.
You got to try this.
Okay, it's all set, huh? Oh, wow. It looks so precious.
There you go. Give it a shot. Let me know how you like it.
Thank you.
Live taste review. No pressure at all.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that phenomenal?
Yeah.
It's ridiculously good.
Mm.
I don't even know if it's proper to mix them that way, but I do what I want.
Hey, whatever works, right?
It tastes good.
Yeah, it's pungent.
For all of you who are interested in spiritual emergency, I'm going to definitely harp on that differentiation factor conversation a little bit more and say that when you want to know if someone is dealing with organic psychosis or spiritual emergency, a good rule of thumb, and even if this is yourself, it's good to check in and say, hey, do I have the ability to see this condition as an inner process without blaming others? And when I was in Joshua Tree, California with the Groff Transpersonal Training Program studying spiritual emergency, shout out to Stanislav Grof. You can read this book. He wrote it on spiritual emergency. Spiritual emergency, when personal transformation becomes a crisis. When I was there with Tav Sparks, one of his proteges, he told me, he said, Greg, they will not be blaming you for what's going on with them, in them. They will recognize that they have an inner process that they're working through. And our capacity to work with them through that is when it shifts from emergency to emergence. But don't get me wrong, like people in the spiritual emergency can be lost in the sauce as well, because like they're in an emergency state, but there's still some degree of awareness around the fact that I'm not the reason you're dealing with that. Like I'm not the sole source of your challenging experience right now. Like you can't blame me for it.
Right.
That's when it becomes more psychotic versus spiritual emergency.
So I'm taking this in, and I'm also having a hard time framing it with, well, I guess, so I hear what you're saying, and I feel like the way I look at it is a little different.
Okay.
And I only say that because I think a lot of people can get into a place of projecting, and it's hard to tell where that's coming from. This kind of goes back to my point where, first off, we don't really know what's going on within them, within the body, within the brain.
Right.
And it's helpful to know that, and that's the advancement for psychiatry, I think, and getting better at assessing that. Because I mean, there could be things at play here. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just kind of giving some examples. But the person could have a nutritional deficiency. They could have sleep deprivation, and on top of that, have been pushed over the edge with some extreme stress, and that can put someone into a really vulnerable place. I have a feeling. It feels so silly saying this because it's like, oh, I have a feeling. That's not very scientific, right? But I'll just put out there.
Feelings matter.
Feelings do matter. I'll say I have a hypothesis that what someone is experiencing in these altered states, whether it's organic or non-organic, one parallel I see between the two is it's still a reflection of who they are and where they are. And if someone is in a place where they are blaming and projecting, that's still a reflection of something going on within them that they brought to it even before the experience.
I agree.
So
no absolutes, by the way.
No absolutes.
No absolutes.
But that's kind of a trail we can follow for whatever this is manifesting as,
Future discourse.
you know, and whatever, absolutely, yeah.
Future discourse.
But even asking the question, what is behind this experience? And that kind of goes back to like intentional peer support. What's the untold story?
Yeah, worldview.
What's the worldview, and what got someone to have this framework of blaming? I would want to know what's their history. What was their upbringing like? What happened recently? What happened just before this experience?
Yeah, man. Shout out to IPS.
Definitely. And these are the kinds of questions we should be asking, but they're not always asked. They're definitely not asked in a typical healthcare setting. And as peers, we're encouraged to ask these, but of course, when we work in a clinical setting, it can be really hard to maintain these values, and it's really easy to even slip out of them when we're surrounded by very clinical practices that are not inclusive. So yeah, these are important questions.
You know, and optimistically, through asking these intentional questions in the spirit of intentional peer support, you know, we can help people go from being lost in the sauce to led and guided by something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And when you talk about spiritual emergency and the spiritual dimension of wellness, that's really what it's about, you know, being in concert with something bigger than yourself.
Totally.
You know?
Totally, yeah.
And in doing so, we might be able to bypass some of the pitfalls of the darker side of spirituality, like greed, gluttony, anger, pride, envy, lust, and sloth.
I'd say those all have value too, that are sometimes hidden. I mean, it's like when Jung talks about the shadow, Carl Jung, these are things that we repress, and they come out in, you could say, negative ways or harmful ways, either to ourselves or others, because we've never given them time or attention, because we've ignored them. And so these things can come out, and I see that as being a factor too in spiritual emergency.
Absolutely.
Things people have tried to push away for so long, and then something happens, like a stressful event
Comes to the surface.
It comes to the surface because
Which is good.
It's bubbling and it's boiling, and there's this pressure cooker that's just like expanding, and then something happens that pushes the lid open and lets all this shit out. It's like, you know, the movie Ghostbusters, where at the end the box gets opened up and all these phantoms come out, and that's exactly, I think, what's happening. It's all of these phantoms are coming out inside them.
Absolutely. And then they actually get an opportunity to purge those impulses that may have been buried deep and actually holding them back for some time. You know, they may have had their place in their life, but at the same time, they may have been holding that person back. And when it comes to the surface in this emergency, they can sort out what that actually means to their whole selves. They can give that darkness a seat at the table, and then actually walk into a more whole version of themselves.
Totally.
After the emergency subsides, they emerge into something better.
And that's the integration piece, right?
That's the integration piece, which is what we're going to talk about in the next set. I think the sun's going down. We're probably going to get a little bit more cozy.
All right.
Go to another scene. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. We back, man.
We're back.
We are back. Oh my goodness. Here in Lake Oswego, Oregon, talking about spiritual emergency with my man Andrew Pegram. Golly, this is great, man. This is great. So I think when we changed scenes, we were helping people to understand the difference between spiritual emergency and organic psychosis. And then we started talking about shifting from emergency to emergence, to better versions, more whole versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful start to this conversation. But in order for people to tap into that emergence factor, that chance for quantum change, they have to have tips on navigating the experience.
Sure.
And the other day we were talking about getting into our bodies
right?
And grounding. What are some of the grounding practices you've employed to help you navigate some spiritual emergencies you may have encountered in your life?
Yeah, so one of the biggest ones that's been helpful for me, and I've heard from other people too, any somatic practice that helps you ground in earth. For me, one of the biggest things is a hot bath, especially like a hot Epsom salt bath.
Yes, man. Every day for me.
It's so therapeutic for me. And I had an experience not that long ago, probably a couple months ago, where I took shrooms. And
hey, man. Shout out to all the psychonauts checking in with us today.
Definitely, all the consciousness explorers. But yeah, I took shrooms and I had what felt like a pain in my stomach, and I could sense that there was what felt like some trauma that was coming up for me too. So I had already been taking baths before that just to help me out with my stress, and so it felt like a good go-to, and I just felt like, well, even though you're on shrooms, this is the right time to take a bath. So
the best time.
I was with a couple friends, and it's kind of weird to say like, yeah, I'm gonna go take a bath right now, but I don't think they cared, and so I just stepped away and said, yeah, I'm gonna go be by myself right now.
Boundaries, people.
Yeah, especially when you're having an experience like that. So I just sat in the hot water and used it as an opportunity to allow. I think that's the hidden message of hot baths. It's like it gets you really in touch with your body, and if you're not trying to distract yourself while you're doing it, it's a good chance to like notice the subtle things going on in your body.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I think I even get activated around relaxation. So I will start to have almost like a stress response when I start to relax. And being in a bath, it's in a way forcing you to relax. And so I would notice like my stress come up as I start to relax, and practicing mindfulness around that, and acceptance, like radical acceptance.
Yeah, for sure. And getting in touch with your senses.
Getting in touch with all your senses. And I sat in the hot water as this pain was in my stomach, and I was feeling what felt like the start of a trauma reaction. And as I just held space for that and didn't fight it, didn't try to push it away, just noticed it, and almost kind of like centering my consciousness there, my awareness there, it felt like it had the space to unfold even more. And I could feel that there was this sense of, there were multiple things going on there. There was something around my sense of validation, needing validation from other people, and also sense of identity that I was giving some space for, that was tied into that. And there was also what I felt was a message for me to get out of my head. Almost like I don't know if you've heard of Louise Hay. I haven't really read her, but I know she gets really deep into like body symptoms reflecting something that's going on internally, like psychologically.
Yeah.
Like if you have like a pain in your knee or something, like that could represent an issue you're having, like repressed anger or something,
Yeah, for sure.
And I was feeling that this was related to the thing with my stomach. Like there was sort of this you could say message for me from my body or my broader awareness, telling me in a very direct way, stop identifying with your thoughts and just feel. And as I allowed that to just feel, I noticed that there was a shift, and the pain went away, and my sense of self shifted. And then when I came out of the bath, I go up to my friend and he's like, "You're different." He's like, "I know, and I don't know what this is about."
That's awesome.
Of course, there's an integration part to this too. I need reminders. We all do. And when we have an experience that is really powerful, it can have sort of a ripple effect, but we still have to remember the message and we still have to apply it. So that's the part of the integration, to remember and keep bringing it into your life.
Yeah, amazing, man. A big part of integration for me, from some very heightened awareness experiences, I'll say,
Yeah.
has been the ritual of bath.
Yeah.
Like, it's a ritual for me.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I'm going in there night after night to tap into my senses, allow my feelings to evoke me in a cathartic way towards the wholeness that exists on the horizon for my life.
Fuck yeah.
So I celebrate that integration practice. Not only is that grounding, but that's integration. So that's like compounded value right there.
It is. It is. You're doing multiple things.
You're doing multiple things with baths.
And it's all kind of happening. If you allow it, it all happens kind of on its own. I mean, you can have an intention to set the tone for it, but then it's just letting it happen.
Letting it happen.
Yeah. And the bath, I think a bath is an excellent way for even beginners to get into mindfulness.
Absolutely.
It's so visceral. It's just, it kind of just automatically brings your attention there.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I think it could be very powerful for people going through spiritual emergency or altered states, because it's going to bring them into a more, I'll just say, a neutral felt sense.
Neutrality.
A neutrality, yeah. A presence of being that's just underlying everything.
Fully present. And
that's, I think, part of the key for navigating these kind of things.
And integration.
And integration. We have to... These experiences are only negative because we relate to them in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't relate to them in a negative way, like talking about psychedelics, there's no such thing as a bad trip, really. If it's coming up for a reason. There's something there.
Right.
That was inside you. That's not something that a drug just pulled out of thin air. What you're experiencing was already inside you. It's amplifying it. It's putting a magnifying glass on your soul, and it's giving you an opportunity to actually look at it instead of rejecting it. In the industrial West, we don't have a very good culture around really exploring the inner nature of ourselves. We tend to be encouraged to focus on what's out there.
Yeah.
And we also are encouraged to consume, to consume information.
Yeah, for sure.
But all the time, we're bombarded with stuff all the time, and it's just accelerating. And so what that does is it pulls us away from ourselves. Social media, really anything on the internet that is distracting you. We have so much media, video games, all kinds of things. It is
Instagram.
It's never been easy.
Yeah. Shout out Instagram. You'll probably see us there.
It's a powerful tool. It's an incredibly powerful tool with the right intention.
With the right intent.
The problem is that there's so much of it, and it's never been easier in the history of humanity to get distracted and pulled away from ourselves.
So let's give them an exercise. For the next 10 seconds, we're just going to be quiet and meditate, levitate, take deep breaths.
All right, yeah.
Wow. You too can stop scrolling, people. I know it's hard, but you can stop scrolling, and we're going to help you.
Yes, and it's very therapeutic to do that.
It's very therapeutic to do that.
Yeah, but we're getting programmed. It's like, it's not just about distraction too. It's also, we are getting conditioned and programmed by social media and the things we consume.
We are.
We're trained to be in these bubbles, and I think that's part of why there's so much polarity and division right now. Social media algorithms are creating bubbles of confirmation bias for us. They're feeding us what we want, but they're also they're doubling down on that, so we don't get much exposure to what's outside of our perspective.
Yeah. So we have to integrate the experiences that bring us deeper into our perspective, like these psychedelic experiences, like Kundalini awakening, like near-death experiences, like psychic renewal.
Yeah, anything that can allow people to get out of their sense of self, because that's constraining. That's a restrictive thing. And if you can get into that awareness that it's free,
Right.
that's where I think a lot of the healing happens.
Unrestrained. But you also have to have the confidence, or at least the willingness, to allow your mind to go there. Some people, that's scary for some people.
It is, and that's part of why it becomes an emergency, because it is scary.
It's scary. It's scary to not have control over your own experience sometimes to people.
That's the thing.
It's a control thing.
So that was something that came up too. I'm glad you brought it up, because it came up in my shroom bath experience too.
Talk about it.
I realized that there was an element of, not always, but I've known this about myself for a long time. I'm kind of a control freak, a perfectionist. But my body was teaching me a lesson around that tightened tension and the need to control things. And it was telling me this need to control it's arising because of identifying with the mind, with thoughts. If I don't identify with thoughts, if I release that into just a pure feeling state, then what happens? There's no, how do I put it? You can even notice a sense of needing to control without identifying with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I look into this in myself right now, even I'll just do like a quick run through. I can notice, okay, need to control, how does that manifest for me? What is that experience like? I can feel that there's a tension in my body. I can feel there's a tightness around my jaws. I can feel like there is a tension in my stomach area around my solar plexus. My heart starts to beat a little bit faster. My breath becomes a little bit more shallow. And then I can even let go of any labels around that and just notice pure sensation itself. I can just notice pure sensation itself. And see, even feeling the need to label things is also a need to control things. Because then you control identification. And there's sort of a place where things are just kind of happening. And you sort of recognize it's not really you. Even though there is a you could say that thinks it's you. You notice that that's just a thought. This is getting a little abstract, but
This is beautiful, man. This is what people need. They need to slow down and hear the tranquility and people sharing space in tranquility. We don't have our phones out. You're being introspective. You're being aware of what's coming up for you, your consciousness, and people will really benefit from being able to see you walk through that, and me experience that and appreciate that with you. That's too rare.
Well, we all have this awareness. It's there all the time, but we just don't notice it. It is there all the time. Part of why things get scary is because we identify with what's happening.
That Part of the reason why things get scary is we identify with what's happening. We attribute challenging experiences sometimes to our own identities, and that can happen to our own detriment. That's why I love the psychedelic safety principle of difficult, not bad.
Yes, exactly. And it applies not just to psychedelics, but to work we do as peers, as healthcare professionals,
Absolutely.
as human beings,
Right.
supporting each other.
As religious leaders, spiritual leaders.
Yeah, being alive.
Just being alive. if just because a situation may be difficult doesn't necessarily mean we need to stigmatize it and make it bad.
Totally.
You know?
And you know that the easiest hijack to that is what is difficult.
And what is difficult?
Like, notice what that is. What is your experience of difficult? When you remove the word and you just experience it, what is happening?
Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay. Well, where's the elephant?
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Andrew Pegram. We've been telling people how mindfulness and meditative practices, rituals around mindfulness and meditative practice, can help them integrate non-ordinary experiences, paranormal experiences, spiritual emergence, and altered states of consciousness, right? In the state of Oregon, you guys have recently decriminalized
that is
psychedelics, right?
Yep.
So,
we did.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. Yes.
How do you feel about that? How do you think that's about to go for you guys?
I'm excited overall. I think there could be some downsides to it, but I think overall it's a good thing. So we are launching it next year, 2023, and I believe they're going to be starting to launch the training program for someone to get licensed as a facilitator. It's probably going to be, I think it's sometime this year, because they're hoping to actually launch these centers like next year, like sounds like right away next year. So I think this could be a game changer because it'll start to change the narrative around psychedelics, but also altered states.
You know, absolutely.
And we need that. We need that reevaluation. And it's not just about the psychedelic. The psychedelic is one avenue to approach this, but having the conversation and having more people experience these things directly, I feel is going to bring about a larger conversation around the nature of consciousness, around how it's so much bigger than we think it is. I think it could ignite a renaissance in other avenues of consciousness exploration, like, float tanks, hypnosis, spiritual practices.
Absolutely.
Different things like that. So as long as people are investigating and exploring these things, I think that's a good thing. The downside potentially could be that it gets co-opted. And from what I've seen so far, from what they've written, what the committee has written on this, it sounds like they have the right intention behind it. They're trying to make it culturally sensitive. They're trying to be open-minded about it, it sounds like. And I don't get a sense that they want this to be clinically co-opted and turned into something else. They want the facilitators to be adequately prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they are sensitive to just the nature of altered states in general, which people need. You can't be a facilitator of altered states without having some kind of appreciation for them. It's just not going to work. So I'm hoping, but I do get the sense that they're trying to do that. They're trying to cultivate that in the facilitators.
Absolutely. And naturally, there's going to be a lot of kids and young adults, maybe even some older adults, trying it on their own. And for all of you guys who are watching right now, considering that, I would like to tell you the 4 principles of psychedelic peer support. Andrew and I are peer counselors, and we're very passionate about making sure that if you are going to explore these plant medicines, that you're doing it in a safe way. So it starts with, number 1, understanding that you should just sit and not guide someone else's experience. You're there to sit and make sure they stay safe, but not guide their experience. Talk them through things and not down. I'm not here to dampen you. I'm here to help you work through what you may be dealing with And sometimes that may be very difficult. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Difficult does not equate to bad.
Yep.
Right? And then the fourth one would just be having a safe space. Something like what we're in right now. This is very safe, very serene, very peaceful. We're by a fire. Enclosed. Comfortable.
Yeah.
We got pillows. It's cozy. Get cozy, people. And you know what? Get yourself some water too.
Yes.
When you are
Take care of your needs.
Make sure that you are hydrating yourself because your body needs it. And
listen to your body. That's a huge principle.
Listen to your body, man. Toast to your health
and your intuition. I love those things. I love those principles, and I feel like they're principles that apply equally to peer support in general, to supporting people in general. Couple things I want to jump off of with that.
Okay.
So the setting is important, and when you're in an altered state, you tend to be more sensitive to the things going on around you. And that includes the atmosphere, that includes like the lighting. You want to consider things like lighting, you want to consider things like odors, textures, all those different elements. How many people are around, is it busy, is it relaxed? Another thing you want to consider is if you're facilitating or sitting with someone, what is going on for you internally? Because we might have a tendency to think, just because I'm having these feelings or these thoughts, I can hold it back and the person's not going to be able to tell. Sometimes we can get away with that, but not all the time. And especially not if someone is in an altered state.
Like spiritual emergency.
Like taking
psychosis.
Psychosis. Any experience where their consciousness is altered.
Amplified.
You want to be considering these things. How might I be influencing the situation, even if I'm not saying anything? Because remember, you're still conveying information through body language. And even though your thoughts might be hidden, your feelings are behind the scenes, they're not really.
It's palpable.
So be aware of that. Be aware of where am I genuinely coming from?
Am I neutral?
Am I negative? Am I positive about this? Consider that. And so an approach to mindfulness can be helpful for just sitting with someone. And you don't want to just be doing nothing. You want to be aware.
Man, that's facts. I'm so happy we just talked about that.
Yeah, that's holding space. All right. Thanks, Gregory.
You're welcome.
Cool. Yeah, I want to preface this by saying everything that is you already knows in a really intuitive sense. And your thoughts don't necessarily know, but there is an awareness that does already know. So it's just about letting your thoughts go and flow and allowing, you could say, what does already know to do its thing. So maybe start off by just taking a slow, deep breath. And imagine you're releasing excess tension. Just to ground a little bit. Check your posture. See if it's comfortable enough or too distracting. All right, now scan your body with your attention. Just notice what's going on in your body, how you're feeling. You can, if you want, you can start by doing it from head to toe. Or if it feels comfortable, you can simply bring your attention to your whole body at once. And all you're doing is noticing, what does this feel like? Your attention might be drawn most readily to areas of tension or areas of pain or discomfort, and that's okay. Feel free to shift if you need to, shift your posture if it gets too uncomfortable. And also, you don't really need to do anything to make the discomfort go away completely. Just see if you can notice without trying to push anything away. All right. So now notice your thoughts. And just see what they're like. And see if you can also notice the sensations that accompany your thoughts, or seem to accompany. And then let's just dissect the thoughts a little bit. Notice how your thoughts are usually one of three things, or all three at once. A sound that's internalized, an image that's internalized, or a sensation. Or all three. And with that awareness, allow your noticing to encompass all of these things at once. All the sensations that you notice. No longer differentiating between, you could say, body sensations and thoughts, because they are all sensation. And a fun thing you can do now is you can notice that there will be more thoughts inevitably that come up, commenting on this experience, perhaps trying to define it, perhaps questioning it. The content isn't important, but notice again that these thoughts are sensations, internalized sound, internalized image, or tactile sense. And just keep reminding this to yourself as each new thought comes up. Sensation, 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 sensation. And of course, every sound that you hear, whether internally or externally sourced, is another sensation, including this voice. Sensation, sensation. And allow your eyes to open for maybe a minute. And notice all the color. And consider that all that is happening with seeing is color. Color is seeing. Seeing is color. And see if you can simply notice any thoughts commenting on what you see as just more sensation. Internalized sound, internalized image, sensation. Sensation, sensation. All of it. All of it. And if you wish, close your eyes again, and if you feel so called, you can keep them open too. Just take another moment or two, allowing your awareness to witness all of this at once. All of it is sensation, sensation. And incorporate any thoughts related to who you are, your sense of self, your sense of having a body, your sense of being an experiencer. All of these thoughts, sensation, sensation. It's all just sensation. And even these words and the thought of that is also sensation. And then you might ask at this point, you can ask the question first if you want verbally or in your mind, but feel into the question itself, into, you could say, the drive, the innate curiosity behind it. What is it that is experiencing this? And feel into that. You can see where that takes you if you wish. This is just the beginning. It's just to give you an initial sense. But something you can practice and bring throughout your day is this broad awareness, noticing everything without identifying. Noticing all sensation, and noticing all thoughts about sensation as more sensation, so that you no longer identify so much with those thoughts. You can then feel into what you could call a spaciousness, a looseness. Even an allowing, as things just happen. And you can even notice the fear around that, the anxiety, the resistance. And that's all okay. Just notice those things and the thoughts commenting on those things. All right. Yeah. I'd say it's helpful to just have little reminders like that, just several times throughout the day, just for a couple moments. You don't really need to do this at length. I sometimes like doing this in the morning and just kind of sitting there for, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes. I don't do that all the time, but you can do that. But it's also really helpful, and I'd say it's even more helpful if you had to do just one of those things, to just do it several times a day for brief moments. And give yourself a little, you could call them mindfulness moments, mindfulness breaks. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Right here. Where? Oh, you're hiding behind that light. Thank you.
Job, man. I really enjoyed that. I think that's going to be super beneficial for somebody, man. Somebody's going to need that one night. And they're going to sit there and take that in and allow that to touch their spirit, man. Elevate the spirit. So, gosh, that's amazing. Thank you.
And if you really want to trip, do that in a hot bath.
Yeah. Go ahead, pour your bath water next time. You could even play it back. You know what I mean? Go pour your bath water. Get in the tub, get a nice little hot soak going, and let Andrew take it to the moon, man. We're going to go ahead and eat some dinner right now.